welcome. It's cool that you could come. Welcome to There's a Game in Your Game Talk. So let's start. My name is Ales Ulm. I am one of the project leads at Bohemia Interactive. Bohemia Interactive is a game developer that's located in Prague, Czech Republic, that has created games like Arma 3, Daisy, Take on Mars, Take on series, with the last game in the series being Take on Mars, and Arma Mobile Ops, which is a mobile game made in Unity. But today, I'm not going to be talking about those games. Instead, I want to talk about another game that our team has been working on for the past 2 years, and the game is called Ylands. Currently, it's in early alpha stage. It's available for PC, Windows systems. And although we've officially announced it just yesterday, in fact, we released it almost exactly a year ago, but we didn't really tell anyone. Because these days players expect even the games that are in early alpha stage or early access to be sort of polished. So we took our time. We really had only a small number of players, so we were getting feedback from them. And now we think that we are ready to show the game to the world. The game has been released under a brand which is also a new brand called Bohemia Incubator, which will be used for, let's say, more experimental game that Bohemia Interactive is going to release. It's made with Unity, partially because we already had experience with Unity. We've done several games with this game engine, but also because right from the beginning, we knew that we would have to do a lot of iterations and fast prototyping, and for that, Unity is really the best engine to use. So let me tell you what is Ylands. Ylands is a single-player exploration game, but also a multiplayer deathmatch, a single-player adventure, and a multiplayer co-op. It's a puzzle game, platformer, and it's a place to chill. I know that this doesn't really answer the question, and that is because Ylands is a game where you can create your own games through custom-made scenarios. And this is exactly what I will be talking about today. I want to show you how we let players create their own games within our game, within Ylands. So this will be the first part of the talk. In the second one, I will focus on some issues that we had during the development. Although you can think of Ylands as a platform to create games, there is some core gameplay. There are 3 scenarios that we created for players. First is Learn, which is a tutorial. Then there is Explore, where you can think of it as a survival sandbox scenario where a player starts on a deserted island, needs to pick items and craft more sophisticated items. Eventually, the player is able to build their own ships and sail to different islands. And then there's Create scenario, which is sort of a God mode, where players start with a specific item that lets them access everything that's available in the game, even tools or objects that let them modify the terrain, which is really cool, especially in multiplayer game, when one of the players or more have something like this. They can just fly around and reshape the terrain. What they usually do is try to drown the other one with water or bury them under sand. Yeah, a lot of fun. Pre-made scenarios. This is something that we from time to time create a scenario for players to play, but I will get to these later. And finally, user-created scenarios. And this is something that I will be talking about today. So now let me give you just a really short glimpse into what scenarios we have been able to create so far, just a couple of examples. And yeah. Yeah, you can create even some super cheesy scenarios. Yeah, this was our energy. This is just a fraction of what you can do with Ylands. So now let me show you and tell you how is it that you can create a game within a game. First thing is that there is a scenario editor. This editor is an integral part of the game. It's not an external tool, which is important because this way we can let players quickly test whatever they create. In this editor, you can create both new scenarios and open existing ones, the ones that we've created, so players can take a look at how we did everything. So let me show you what the editor looks like. As I said, it can be accessed from within the game. You just hit edit and the editor starts. Here we are opening existing scenario, one that we have created. It's called Siege. Yeah, so on the right side, you can see a list of all the items that are available in the game. Right now, it's over 1,500 items. New are coming in with every update. Eventually, we would like players to be able to import their own assets. This is what the building looks like. And also, you can do a lot of things with terrain. You can modify it, paint over it. Yeah, so this is what the editor looks like. So once you open the editor, you want to create a level. There you have two options. Either you can let the game take care of that. You just tell it or show on the globe where you want your island to be. For example, an Arctic region or a jungle. And the game takes care of the rest. And then you can place some more items there or just modify the terrain if you want to. Or you can start with an empty scene. And you can build things there. For example, if you would like to do something like a platformer. Let me show you how that works. So here we have arid region in the editor, but we didn't like it, so let's go with something different. So on the globe, we select an Arctic region. We hit generate, and the game creates a new Arctic map for us. But the Arctic region is really harsh. Players usually die there real fast because it's super cold and there is nothing to eat. Well, there are penguins, but you don't kill penguins. Well, some do. Yeah, so let's try jungle. Yeah, so this is jungle. So here you can build your own structures or dig caves. But maybe you would like to start from the scratch. So here I'm using a tool that's called Terraformer to create just a small piece of land hanging in the air. Then we put some things on it. Yeah, some trees, conifer trees. Yeah. One big one, some smaller ones. And to test it, we place there spawn point, we hit play, and the game gets loaded, and you can try it right away. You can see how that works. So this is how levels are created. But I wouldn't call it an adventure if this was all that players would be able to do. I mean, like just run around generated levels. So this is where objects that are called game logic objects come into play. And these are objects that like, breathe life into the level. Those are things that are interactive. Instead of going with sophisticated menus and lists, we instead decided that we wanted players to edit the levels with the game objects. So everything that players want to change or set, they do with items that they place in the level. There are actually several types of those items. I made a list of the most commonly used, and I will tell you how these can be used, what they are good for. First is trigger zone. I think most of you probably know what trigger zone is. Let me give you an example how we use those. There is a pre-made scenario that we created for players, which is called Islander Jones. It's a sort of Indiana Jones parody. And there is actually a passage with torches on the wall, and we wanted the torches to light up whenever a player would walk past them. So we did that with trigger zones. Let me show you how in a video. So this is the editor. Now I'm placing a trigger zone game object in the passage. Yeah, now it's sphere-shaped. I want it to be a block, so I change it. We scale it a little bit so that we know that players would have to go through it. And now we set it up. We tell it that if players walk into it, we want an action to take place. And we select one of the actions. We select perform an action with an entity. Then we pick what entity that will be. It will be the torch. And now we can access everything that can be done with the torch. So we select light, and that's it. Now we can test it. We hit play. And here it is. The important thing is that in our game, you can access really every single interaction that all the objects can do, their states. So for example, you can lock, unlock, open, close doors. You can make campfires. You can light them. You can douse the fire. Our trees grow in stages, so you can make them grow up or shrink or die. And this way, you can really set up a lot of things in your level. Then there are time triggers. These are game logic objects that perform actions with a delay or repeatedly. Once again, in that Islander Jones scenario, we had darts in our walls, in the walls that we wanted. Well, the darts were shot every, say, 2 seconds. So we put time triggers there. We link them to those darts, and we set up the time triggers. So every 2 seconds, they called action fire on those darts. Then there is play role. Whenever a player creates a new game based on a scenario, they start with a specific role. It can be just what they have in the inventory when they start, what items are they wearing, but it can be something more sophisticated. For example, if they belong to Team Red or Team Blue, if it's a multiplayer game, it says, you can set up how, if they can die, how many times can they respawn. If they die, what happens? So let me show you an example how we set one play role. There's a scenario that we created, and it's called Wild West. There are several roles, like sheriff, bandit, and a bartender. This one is a bartender. So we placed a game logic object that is of a type play role into the scene. We named it bartender. We said that bartender will start with some items. He doesn't, well, actually, he starts with some clothes equipped. He doesn't have any items in the inventory, which is no big deal because he starts right next to a shotgun and shotgun shells hidden beneath the counter. And it tells the game where we want the character to start. It's actually there, the yellow round thingy. This is where the character will appear for the first time. But whenever bartender dies, he gets respawned at another point, which is the graveyard. Also, you can see that whenever this character dies, we destroy whatever they have in their inventory or things that they have equipped. So if we set a game logic object, a player role like this, and we save the scenario, the next time someone will create a game based on this scenario, they will get to choose this role from the list. Then there is a really powerful game logic object which is called event listener, and that is an object that you place within your game, within your level. It doesn't really matter where it is, and you tell it to listen for specific events. For example, you can tell it to do something whenever player gets hurt or whenever player that has specific role gets hurt, or it can do something when an object is picked up, whenever an object changes state, whenever a specific object is placed somewhere. So for example, the Islander Jones scenario that I mentioned, there is a scene that we sort of borrowed from Indiana Jones movie where Indiana Jones picks up the idol. So we have something similar in our game. So there is a listener that actually listens for these objects to be picked up or removed from its place, and it runs a specific action. So this way, by combining the game logic objects, which are really flexible, you can even create like a simple adventure games, because not only can you do things with objects, but you can even ask player questions, and based on what their reply is, you can run different actions. You can there was actually a chest that asked you a question. It asked you how many awesome Indiana Jones movies are there. There are 4 in total. If players answered, if their answer was 4, the chest said, okay, the last one was Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So it said, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, really? And the chest didn't open. If they said 3, the chest opened and they got the loot. So this way you can create like a puzzle game. So if you use those game logic objects, you can really make your levels interactive. So this is how we let players create their own scenarios, their own games. And now let me tell you something about the issues that we faced. Let's start with technical issues. Obviously, a game like this, because it's a rather large project, we have dozens of thousands of entities in the level. There are no dummy objects. They are all simulated. They have their own states. They get loaded and unloaded. So we ran into some performance issues. The good thing is that we really didn't need any black magic to solve those. The issues that we ran into are ones that are rather well documented, and I think most of you probably ran into some of them as well. Obviously, garbage collection, we had to make sure that we didn't do any excessive allocations. We had far too many draw calls, which we fixed by combining objects with that has the same materials into larger meshes. Actually, we are creating 2 meshes. One is an object that you can see, and the other one that is created from lower lots is used for shadow casting. And this really helped us, especially in places where players were building really large structures from thousands of blocks. So, for example, when they did something like this, or a part of a city, we were able to raise the average FPS by 30 to 60 frames. We are using really complex geometries, so we are using a lot of lots. Again, this is something that you can easily do yourself. yeah, then we had some problems with third-party plugins. In general, third-party plugins are really great. On Asset Store, there are lots of cheap, really great solutions. And those are especially helpful in the beginning of the project. But there are also some problems, some possible problems. They differ in quality. This is not a big issue when you're using less sophisticated solutions, because you can always look up what other players say about them, and then you buy them, you use them, and everything is awesome. But when you are buying something that is really a sophisticated solution, sophisticated plugin that is expensive, then many times, because it's expensive, it's not used by that many players. It means that it can be less mature, there can be some bugs, and it can easily happen that you will be using this tool or plugin in a way that other players haven't used it. So you can run into bugs that are unknown. So you need to be aware of that. And also, we had some problems with support, because usually when you buy a plugin, you take a look at how support works for this plugin, if the author communicates, if they are releasing updates regularly. But this can really change pretty much overnight. So we had a problem with our solution that we used for terrain generation. Suddenly we were receiving almost no support. We had some problems with performance, and we ended up with rewriting most of this plugin ourselves, which took actually months, and it was a big issue for us. I mean, most of the things most of the solutions that you can get on asset stores are just fine, but you just need to be aware that some really bad things can happen from time to time, and plan for that. We knew that we would have to use a lot of external tools for things like creating recipes for crafting or setting up hundreds of items. So we were wondering if we should maybe program it ourselves, or if we should try using Unity editor extensions. In the end, we decided to give Unity editor extensions a try, and actually we are very happy that we did, because they are really easy to work with, and they are actually so easy that even our designers can create or code their own simple tools that help them a lot. They are great for visualizations, and they help us with finding some issues that we are having. For example, this is how we define our terrains. This is how a formula or recipe for an item looks like. So whenever we have a problem with a specific item, we can look there and we see right away what the problem is. Since I mentioned design problems, let me get to those. We actually have a problem with introducing new content to players, because we mention them in changelog, but the problem is that players don't read usually. So we were wondering how to show them what new things we put into the game. And first thing, what we did is that we have an inventory, and there are some filters or categories that players can choose. So we added new one that reads new and noteworthy. Whenever players open this category, they can see what we brought with the new update. And also, this thing I already mentioned, pre-made scenarios. For most of the updates that we release, we also create a specific scenario. So for example, when there was an update called Wild West, where we introduced some Wild West themed assets and horse riding, then we created a scenario that was called, Wild West as well. And this way, whenever players download a new update, they they see right away that there is a new scenario, they can run it, they can test it, and even if they play it for like 5 to 10 minutes, they can right away see what new assets we introduced, they can try the new features, and give us some feedback. This is what the new category looks like. On the right side, you see on the right side we have some, there are like featured items, new and noteworthy. And this is what our play window looks like, where you can see all the scenarios on the left side. In the left side column, you can see the base ones. And the smaller ones are the ones that we create with our update. So when we introduce catapults and explosives, we created the siege update. For some multiplayer features, we released Sky Arena. There is also sort of an adventure game. So this is how we are introducing new content to players. We had some issues with balancing the speed versus polish. At the beginning, we were releasing new updates real fast. We were releasing update every 2 weeks. I know it doesn't sound like much because there are games that release updates pretty much every single day, but our updates were really large. Every update had a lot of new assets, really big, new, sophisticated features, which was sort of good because at the beginning we really needed to put together some like base gameplay, and we needed at least some features to test the game. We were able to do this for about 4 months, and then we found out that the game was getting, or the updates were getting a little bit too difficult to test properly, and the quality of our features were slipping a little bit, that they were not that polished as we would like them to be. So now we are releasing updates every 3 to 4 weeks. But the most important thing is that we keep players in the loop. So every week we do at least one thing, that we post a new entry on our forum where we tell them what our programmers, artists are working on right now. We show them screenshots. We post screenshots on Facebook, Twitter. We post GIFs of new features so they know what to expect and they don't get angry if the update gets delayed a little bit. The last thing I'm going to talk about, which was really a problem for us, was getting proper feedback, because it's always easier to get some feedback when you're making a linear game, but when the game is a sandbox game, especially when it's a game like the one that we did, where players can create their own games, it's a little bit difficult to actually find how they are doing things, if they are doing everything the way they are supposed to do it. So we started by gathering anonymous data via Delta DNA. This actually told us a lot, but still we didn't get the big picture. So later we added our own in-game feedback tools, so players can, with every update, easily select how they are happy with specific features, or they can enter the advanced panel where they can tell us about the technical problems they may have. They can attach screenshots, logs, they can put their emails so that we keep them in the loop. And in the end, the most important thing, or the one that we really find the most useful, is sort of obvious, but if your game has been released, the best thing to do is watch YouTubers, because these guys are really awesome. Not only you can see how they play the game, but sometimes they even come across some issues that we weren't aware of, like this poor soul who actually ran into a really nasty bug where he couldn't open a crafting panel. So although he loved the game, he hated this thing, so he made a new episode which he called very subtly Open for Crying Out Loud. And this is really helpful. So I know it sounds obvious, but if you want to know how good your game is, just watch the players play it. And that's all. We made it through. If you have any questions or comments or want to learn more, just you can write me at that email address, or visit our website, or follow us on Ylands, Game, Twitter, or Facebook. Thank you. So if you have any questions now, okay.
Exercise for the day. Here we go.
How large was your team in terms of programmers, artists, to put this game together in 2 years?
Yeah, we actually started in 4 people, and now there's 13 of us.
Brilliant. Thank you.
In regards to user-created content, how do you guys moderate it? Do you have an approval process they have to go through, or is it a reporting system so that if something is inappropriate, that you can take it down? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, actually, right now, the only way players can share their game or their creation is that they actually give the file to their friends, and when they are playing multiplayer, usually it's that they only invite their friends. But eventually, we want to see more of them online. We want them to create there's the scenarios that then they would be able to share on some online hub. And yeah, then we will have to think about this. We will probably moderate it a little bit, but we are also thinking that we will probably do some rating system where players themselves will be able to rate all that will be uploaded, and they will be able to mark things that they think contain something harmful.
I think we can make this the last question, please. It's coming. Great, thank you.
Hey, how much did you care about backwards compatibility and/or breaking it in the early stage?
Yeah, that's a delicate matter actually. We try to keep the backward compatibility, but yeah, on 2 occasions we actually had to do really big game-breaking changes that players, after update, players loaded their scenes and they were really changed. But fortunately, they understood that this was necessary. We really had to do, especially in the beginning, a lot of optimizations. And yeah, this was the result. So yeah, we weren't able to keep the backward compatibility during the whole development. But right now, we really need to keep it, and we do everything that we can so that we don't break anything in the scenes that they have already created. Okay, anyone else?
Right. Okay, well, thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you.
And a very interesting talk. Thank you.